Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Keep your relationship fueled up with strategies discovered by couples and experts. Because at Fuel Collective, we believe better relationships will equal a better world. You are about to discover specific insights and tools that cost little or nothing to implement to help you date forever. And now, here are your hosts, a couple who always have a half-packed suitcase and a date night in the calendar, Sammy and Nathan Yeager.
Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're chatting about reconnecting yourself to your truth and your gifts, getting your intentions, desires, and actions to all line up, and exploring the three areas of life that we sit in: thinking, feeling, and doing. But before we get into it, Sammy, what's been fueling you up this week?
I think we should ask you first, birthday boy.
Oh, yeah?
How was your birthday?
Oh, my birthday was amazing. I've had a pretty epic week this week, actually.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, well, this last week we got back from Adelaide early in the week, and then we had my birthday on Thursday, which was a little bit exciting. So we went out for dinner.
33 years old.
Yeah, that's the one. So we went out for dinner on Thursday night. We went to a new Japanese restaurant just around the corner from us, which was pretty nice. And then you surprised me over the weekend with a little getaway.
So we had a double date week.
Yeah, well, you always get a birthday week or a birthday month, so I'm entitled to that too.
Okay, so we had date night Thursday night and then big surprise date on Saturday.
Yeah, so it was a surprise. So it ended up being a little getaway onto Sydney Harbour to spend a night on a yacht, which was really, really nice.
It was funny. Last week during our chat, you asked about what were our greatest dates ever. And one of the dates that you brought up was sailing in Sydney Harbour. And I was like secretly smiling away, being like, oh, you reckon sailing was good? How about sleeping in the harbour?
Yeah. And we had an epic view of the bridge and the opera house and the city and everything too. So it was, a really incredible night. I got to spend it with you.
Yeah, it was a little bit bougie. It was a bit of a splurge, but we've been doing no overseas travel and it was a unique experience. And it felt like, the right time to give you a little bit of spoiling.
Thank you. So, Sammy, what's been fueling you up?
That?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed planning it and surprising you. And I did, I had to put it in the calendar because you've started playing footy and not at the time that you would normally be available was now not. So I had to, make you aware that you weren't going to be able to play footy.
Yeah.
But you handled the surprise far better than I would have or have in the past for that kind of thing. So I really enjoyed, surprising you and giving you a few little clues. But then also I think it was a bit of a growth for me about just trusting you, and that if you do things like that for me, how much fun it is for the person who's organizing as well as the receiver. So I think it just reminded me of that need to have both sides of the coin, or you need both the inhale and the exhale.
Yeah. And you got to enjoy the spoils of your own organising too and spending it out at a yacht.
Yeah. It's fancy that my kind of spoiling includes champagne. Yeah, but aside from all the bougie stuff, I really did just love spending time with you. And we had, I think this is like common for us that we have quite different conversations when we're outside of our normal environment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so I loved that. I thought that was really nice.
And playing a few games of cards and enjoying a couple of drinks.
Kicking your ass at
Someone's got to win.
Yeah, and it's not you. So given that the show is called Date Forever and we are activists of continuing to date yourself and your chosen person for forever, hence Date Forever, organizing the date and the night away did take effort. And, intentional about time and money and energy and organizing the dog and keeping it a secret and all of that sort of stuff. But I feel like there's never a time where I regret putting in that effort. And I think that although this was for your birthday and it was a special occasion, making the time to actively date you and create those unique experiences for us really just does fuel, I'm sure, you up, but me up and in turn us up. So just a little bit of encouragement if anyone's hesitating to spend the time, money or energy on those kind of experiences or doing something out of the ordinary. Just do it. It's worth it.
It really is, isn't it? But now, let's introduce this week's guest.
Today we're welcoming Tyrone Williams. He is a transformational life coach and bodyworker. He excels at bringing out a person's natural gifts and strengths, allowing their next best self to come through. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Hey, we are stoked to have you here.
Here we are.
Life coach, hey? How did you get involved in the coaching space?
I love this story. I'll try and keep it succinct, but to give a little bit of context, I am Australian, but I grew up sort of all over the place. And I arrived in Australia with $5 to my name, no education, no network. And for about the first year, it was really a hard slog of, actually, it's not going to be that easy in Australia. My perspective was, it's going to be so much easier in Australia than it is in Singapore. Long story short, I ended up getting given an opportunity to join a sales company, which was 100% commission. And they had a really powerful mentorship program. And over the course of 2 years, I trained over 500 people in sales. I found out very quickly that what I enjoyed was the coaching, not going out and still doing sales. You know, once I'd hit number one a couple times, I was like, there's no fun in this anymore. So I was really just driven by watching other people's development. From there, I went into finance thinking that that's what I wanted to do. Had a whole huge burnout, went on a year-long sabbatical, did all these Tony Robbins courses, found that his methods were a little bit, hyper challenging and missing an aspect, but beautiful, so much to learn. And the deeper and deeper and deeper I went, I ended up going about full-time about 3.5 years ago. And since then, there's been multiple evolutions. There's been coaching for sales. There's been business coaching for conscious entrepreneurs. There's been scaling for health coaches. But the deeper and deeper I went, I found that I was coming up around behaviors and cycles that people couldn't explain. They're like, oh no, I know I should, or I must. And I realized there was more to it as well. There's trauma. There's the nervous system, there's the body work, there's the breath work. So the deeper and deeper I went into coaching, I found that the analogy or the metaphor is, if I spent the past 7 years learning how to cook the perfect omelet, which is the coaching skill, the beautiful seasoning and the added sides and everything is the body work. The ability to help someone actually remove the blockages in their energy and their nervous system is so important. I think that answers the question.
Yeah. So who do you work with now? Who do you specialize in working with now?
I had a really defined niche for a little while, and that was really helping me in the marketing space. Now, I seem to just attract and be quite magnetic in day to day, and just find that anybody who's disconnected from their heart and unsure of what they've really got to give, their passion's a little bit off, that's the magic. So I reconnect people to their truth and their gifts.
So what does it look like when somebody is out of touch with those things? What are they experiencing?
Lack of clarity. They don't really know where they're going. There's generally a little bit of a war within themselves. Part of them wants to go one way, but then they shut it down. They're like, no, I could never do that. I would love to do that. Oh, no, but that's not for me. Or, that's what they do. Those people over there, the cool ones. There's a misalignment. The intention, desire, and action just isn't lining up.
I like that. The intention, the desire, and the action aren't matching up. I feel like lots of people would resonate with that in various areas of their life.
Yeah, 100%. People use the flow and alignment, but what does that actually mean? That's it. It's like, and that's all your emotions are. Your emotions are just there to tell you that your intention, desires, and actions aren't in alignment. Right. So if you want to go that way and you really desire to go that way, but you're acting in this way, your emotions are going to go, no. And that's in relationships, that's in your career, that's everything. But we've also been taught, I generalize here and I want to try to avoid generalizing, right? But in very Western programming in the media, we see that we're not supposed to feel bad, right? Don't catch feelings and all this kind of stuff. But if you're unwilling to be hurt and unwilling to be vulnerable, you're never going to have the relationship you're meant to have.
So how do we then, tap into our feelings a bit more to start uncovering some of this?
I think that depends on the individual. I can just speak to my personal experience. By nature, consciousness, we spend time in one of three areas: thinking, feeling, or doing. If we're out of whack in any way, we will have the tendency to gravitate to one or two of those more than the other. All right? Some people are thinking and feeling, they forget to do. Some people are feeling, doing, and forget to think, and whatever, right? I was a incredible thinker-doer who refused to sit still and feel his feelings. And early in my relationships, it was mostly about power, validation, and, let's be real, manipulation.
So that feel, think, do, and if we've got, any two but not the full trifecta, I assume that what would be going on for that person would depend on which two they've nailed.
100%.
So maybe, Ty, if you could talk us through what would happen if we're not doing the feeling.
So kind of the metaphor that I like here is like a bar stool, like a three-pronged bar stool, and you're kind of balancing on just two of them, right? You might have a brilliant mind, and you might be really good at executing things. That's why you spend time in thinking and doing. However, eventually, because you avoid feeling for so long, that seeps in to the other two. Your thoughts get less clear. Your actions are erratic. People are like, I got so much to do. I'm doing too many things at once. And then you ask them what their business looks like. And it's like, I do this for this client. I do that for this client. My girlfriend doesn't know everything about my life because I compartmentalize things. That's kind of what it looks like. There's no silence. There's no stillness. And there's more than likely some kind of addictive tendency to numb, medicate, or avoid that feeling. Whatever that feeling is, right? We all have our own feeling that we wish to avoid, which I think is another, in terms of the topic of the podcast today, relationships. It's like a really good question to ask yourself before you get in a relationship is, are you comfortable being alone? Number one. And number two, everything you're like consciously or subconsciously expecting your partner to give you, do you first give it to yourself, or like, what does that look like?
And I think that this like thinking doing combo could be really dangerous in relationships too. If you're going in and you feel like you're doing all of the things and you're thinking all of the right things, but if there's no actual feeling behind what you're doing, probably the connection isn't there, and a lot of the relationships might be shallow.
Versus if you had all of the feeling and all of the thinking, but you never actually did anything.
You might have,
never took any action.
All the connection, but there's still nothing there between your relationship because you're not doing anything.
100%. 100%. That's that. Like the goal, obviously, is to be able to be in balance with all three. But how do you recognize that when it's been going for so long? I think a great sign is usually what we try to give to others. What do I mean by that? It's like a great end-around way of looking at it. It's people go, I'm always giving her massages. I'm doing these things. But then she doesn't fill in the blank. And I go, have you asked? Like, have you spoken to those needs? Often people give what they most want to receive. And it's like, well, that person didn't even ask for what you're giving them. And now you're giving it with this subconscious expectation, I've rubbed your back, now you should do something for me.
That transactional exchange.
100%. So what do I mean by this is a sign? So often people will be like, well, I'm going to give you personal space because you seem upset. That would be more me speaking to what I need as opposed to what you need. Maybe you just want a hug, right? But the assumptions kill us.
Yeah. And that personal space could actually show up like you're abandoning that person while they're hurting.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah. So for me is how willing have I been to also be vulnerable and hurt and look past my anger? I think that's a big thing as well. Probably the biggest learning in the past 2 years is that anger doesn't mean your boundary has necessarily been crossed. You got to ask yourself if this is a wound or a boundary. And what is under the anger? Because generally speaking, I mean, there's two ways to look at it. Anger usually is when you feel unseen and unheard.
Yeah.
Plus, when you're protecting pain underneath it. Right? So whenever I kind of catch myself getting upset or angry, I'm going, whoa. This is an opportunity. What's going on here? Right? Like, why am I getting so upset at this other person's behavior? Nobody else is. And usually, go on. Yeah.
I was going to say, we're back to generalizing, but have you got a hard and fast rule for identifying, well, was that a boundary or is there a deeper wound?
Yeah, 100%. Can I sit with it first and breathe through it? And is the thought repetitive? If the thought becomes really repetitive, you're probably in the trauma mind. If it's going over and over and over and over and over, you're probably in the trauma mind.
So to simplify that even further, that means there's something has happened and it's upset you or caused what you would describe as like a negative emotion or a negative experience, and then sitting with it and it reoccurring or replaying that emotion or feeling or thought pattern would indicate that you've had a trauma or an experience like that in the past that has not yet been healed or resolved.
Potentially, yeah. So, I mean, there's two levels to that, right? Because maybe you don't have trauma. Maybe you've not been traumatized. Maybe you are literally in this moment just hurt. The question then becomes is, what about this actually hurt you, right? I feel like far too often, again, generalizing, there's a lack of willingness to feel pain in relationships. People are like, you're not supposed to be hurt in your romantic relationships. I've been hurt, therefore this isn't right. And they get angry about it as opposed to talking about it, right? Obviously, there's a spectrum of this in every avenue. The more beautiful relationships that I've seen, witnessed, and experienced myself, generally speaking, it's like, well, if you've done something to hurt me, am I willing to feel that, look into it, and just speak to my vulnerability as opposed to hurting you back or putting up walls or creating distance? And for me, I think the beauty in that is that every time you are hurt, it's simply an opportunity to learn about yourself.
I think there's a misconception that if you found your person, your one true love or your big love, your Mr. or Mrs. or they right, that it will just be perfect and easy and fluid and there won't be, hurt there. And that if there is any hurt or pain or discomfort or not meeting your expectations 100% of the time, that then it's like, well, this can't be my person. This can't be, the magic love that Disney sold me. And I'm not sure where we learn or where we start to deprogram that and go, well, it's not realistic to believe that there's not going to be light and dark in every relationship. And that's truly where the growth happens. As painful as it is in the moment, I know that when Nathan and I have had really uncomfortable conflict or friction or tension or whatever you want to label it, there's been incredible growth on the other side of it.
Yeah, definitely.
I can so relate. The greatest growth moments have generally come after a hard conversation like that, like where we're talking about jealousy or we're talking about insecurities, we're talking about whose responsibilities are what, how we're behaving as a team, as a unit. Things happen in life and then suddenly this unit, this team gets tested. And speaking to what you said before, I think, people expect almost this like, couldn't put it a better way, Disney
sold it to you.
Yeah. Perfect like, fairy tale relationship.
100%. And I don't want to say that doesn't exist, but I feel like that's kind of really rose-colored glasses, right? It's like you got to be able to see the shadow within yourself and others. You got to be able to hold space for that shadow. You can't try to hold someone to this gold platinum standard of perfection in a relationship and expect that they're never going to hurt you. Because number one, they might make mistakes. Number two, just because you're hurt doesn't mean they've done something wrong. I think that's the key, right? It's like people are hurt and they go, that's their fault.
Is it?
Yeah. What role did you have to play in that hurt?
Yeah. It's like that. Buddhism, they say, if you believe you were hurt, you were hurt. But if you don't believe you were hurt, were you ever hurt in the first place? Like, when you give the meaning of every interaction, you are the one that gives the meaning to it.
Yeah. And it's interesting too because you take that simple idea of like the meaning that you apply to interactions, and you can have, a group of friends who have a waiter come over to the table and interact with them and take their order and are servicing that experience. And everybody at that table has experienced that interaction differently and they've applied their own meaning to it. Oh, she was a bit brash and rude, and you're like, oh no, but someone else next to them goes, yeah, but look how busy the restaurant is. She's just busy, so you can see how we each take our own experiences and apply meaning to even the most mundane kind of interactions with other people.
100%. And, to speak to I used to be, I think probably, if I'm like really, really honest in this moment, probably one of the most horrible boyfriends to be with, right? So I was dating an absolute goddess for 6.5 years, a French woman. I was at that stage in my personal development, my spiritual development, where I'd gone from being a victim, blaming everything all the time, to trying to claim my power, but being averse, like almost like white knuckle sobriety, but with sadness. I didn't want to come anywhere near sadness. I was really avoidant towards it. If I became sad, I would smoke weed or watch porn or avoid it or just like work extra hard.
Back to just doing the thinking and the doing, no feeling.
100%. Yeah. Because I did not want to feel sad, feel angry, feel lonely, or bored. Those 4 were my things, right? And my tendencies was towards women, drugs, work, and status to combat those things. Until I was willing to feel, hold, and contain my own sadness, every time my girlfriend would get sad, what would I do?
Avoid. Escape.
Like, I'm out of it. I'll hug you a bit, but like if you keep sobbing and stuff, I'm probably gonna get upset. It's like, why can't you just like be like me and be positive, right? Why are you crying all the time? And that's abuse. That is 100% abuse, right? And I didn't even know that. I was walking around thinking I was a great boyfriend, you know, like look at us, we're the power couple, we're da-da-da. But the emotional needs, I had no idea how to, one, meet my own emotional needs, how to process them, let alone do that for someone else and hold space for that. So whenever someone was angry, sad, expressed loneliness or boredom,
you were running.
Yeah.
Running or pushing.
How did you get to a place where you've got the self-awareness that you can look back at that and see what you were doing? What have you done to increase that awareness?
I mean, the work never stops, right? So I despite being a transformational life coach and bodyworker myself and holding space for so many other people, I have 2 of my own coaches myself. I work with an incredible woman, Janine, who's with the Broad Foundation, and she's just magical. And she holds me to such a beautiful standard and has such compassion for me and unconditional love that I learnt from that, because we can't give to ourselves what we've never been given. And consciousness is always looking for development. We're seeking experiences that are going to develop our consciousness around, whether that's spirituality, intellectually, relationships, sexuality. There's a couple more, but whatever that looks like, we're drawn to that aspect of ourselves that's missing or suppressed or hidden away. And I think that was an aspect of myself, was being okay with being sad and not running away from it or trying to be the positive guy or the pleaser or the performer. Or it was a deep programming within me that if I was around, other people should be happy. And if other people weren't smiling as a result of me, I was failing.
So now that you've kind of learnt to tap into those feelings and to be able to even just, I guess, sit with those feelings, how has that transformed some of your relationships?
My father and I had a very complicated relationship for a very, very long time. We hadn't spoken in 3.5, 4 years. The relationship was really dramatic at the end of it. I did work for him, he didn't pay me and all this kind of stuff. I lost my place because of it, and it was dramatic. I hated him for it. Couldn't accept him. I could accept other people because I saw hurt people, and I got that, but for my father, I held a higher standard. Couldn't accept him, couldn't love him.
Yeah.
As a result of doing all this healing, this work on myself, I realized everything I couldn't accept in him was just a part I couldn't accept in myself. And as I looked deeper and deeper and I did that healing, I cried, did all this kind of, just nothing.
Felt the sadness that you've been avoiding.
Melted into a puddle of just massive, And then I called him and said, let's go have a coffee. I was able to tell him I loved him despite no matter what. He started telling me all these conspiracy theories and stuff. And I'm like, okay, Dad, don't worry. I love you regardless, and I'll have these conversations. I'll hold that space. Also reconnected with my mother that I wasn't close with. And now in my relationships with people, anybody who has unresolved sadness, simply by now being in my presence and us talking, if we're together for an hour or two, or we're just hanging out as friends in an environment, that's going to come up. It just does. Because it can't be avoided. They're just things that people say, the workaholics badge of honor. They start saying how busy they are all the time, and then I don't let that slide. I'm like, dude, it seems like you're uncomfortable when you stop working. What's that about? And they go, oh shit, I don't actually know. I just can't sit still. I go, cool. Let's, and it's the same with everything. So it's like, how does that change? How does that change my relationships? There's a lot more honesty. There's a lot more vulnerability. And I realize now, because I'm so willing to have my heart broken, and I'm so willing to feel sadness, and I'm so willing to feel alone, I'm not afraid of a bad breakup. And so I'm in, right? I'm all in with all my desires, intentions, and wants. I'm in an open relationship with a beautiful woman, and we love exploring together. And it is so divine. And, we're consistently checking in to define what our relationship is. Because people, I think that's another big thing, is like, you're all individuals. Have individual, like, different relationships, like unique, tailored relationships. There's not just two choices, single or dating and then married. It's, what does that look like? There are couples who don't live together. There are couples who live together but in different beds and different rooms because it just, their bed sleeps better. There are couples who live together, 24/7, and that works beautifully, but they have all these other relationships. Figure it out. What do you actually want? You only get to do it once.
I really like that you shared this because, over the course of the last year, Nathan and I have had, now 52 conversations with different couples and different experts. And one of the things that has shown up consistently is that what works for one couple will not work for another. And what works for that couple won't necessarily work for the other one. And although we're all trying to navigate and really seek the same kinds of things in terms of love and acceptance and a place to give and get nurturing, the ways that we go about receiving those things or seeking those things or achieving those things is really different. And it's one of the most beautiful gifts of having these conversations. And for our listeners to go, well, the way that we do it, it's okay that it's different.
And it doesn't quite look like how other people might do it, but it all works.
100%. It's like, trust that inner voice, right? It's like, I think it's Rumi who says that what you desire desires you, and that your dreams, your dreams are intelligent. They're literally calling you forward. And so, for this example, I'm gonna be a little cheeky here. Very typical male fantasy to be dating two women, let's say. Okay? If you want that as a man, why not?
Because society has told you no.
Why not? If that's the programming, society told you no, well then that's a sign. Hang on a second. Is society living your life or are you living your life? That's number one, right? So, and who's to say there's not two incredible women out there who would absolutely love that experience too? And because you're denying yourself that, you're actually also kind of denying them the man that they might be doing it with. So this then applies in so many levels, right? You see the cute girl down the street, you go, I'd love to talk to her. There's a version of you that is talking to her. Keeping in mind, we're all social creatures, as long as you're not being creepy and weird and, asking inappropriate or anything. People love to be talked to. Yeah. Especially now, post-pandemic, people get to dance and everything. Shoot your shot. Maybe she's been standing there the past hour thinking, why isn't nobody talking to me? Right? But because you didn't listen to that inner desire, that inner voice, you shut it down, you will never know. That's number one. And that applies in that seeing that girl across the street. That applies with your dream about creating that new business, that creative business, and leaving your banking job. That applies to wanting to move to the Gold Coast and live on the beach as opposed to in the city, because why not? It's just, there's something here, right? Like in the chest, and you'll feel it, and it'll go, and it'll pull you in a direction, and then people will shut it down. And you can see it on their physiology. They'll shut their shoulders down like that, and their chests cave in, and then they kind of like, start looking up like this at people.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Hey, I really like that you shared that, because this is something that Nathan and I have kind of been talking about a little bit, particularly the last few months, around having a strong feeling that we both want to be closer to the ocean. And then I think we both go into thinking mode of like, well, what would that look like? Could we do that? Where would this land? Where would that land? What would that mean for other parts of our lives?
Would
and
it
then
be more expensive?
would it
be
be
work from there too?
Or what would our potential commute look like? All of the thinking things which prevents.
Can I just speak to one thing? I mean, you guys are all absolutely awesome. And so far in your life, every single thing that has happened, everything, you've gotten through and you've thrived and you're here. And you guys have an incredible partnership. Sounds to me, if you guys wanted to be by the water and you went, whatever challenges faced you in the future, you'd face them with the same, as Marcus Aurelius says, you'd face them with the same weapons of reason that arm you against the present today. Mm-hmm. Shoot your shot. Go live at the
Shoot
water.
shot. Go be by the beach.
Yeah.
It's epic.
Yeah.
Changed my life.
Yeah, I think that we do all have desires and that intuitive feeling, that thing that we really want. And then there is the thinking or the society or the construct of like what we should do versus what we truly, really want to do. So I think that applies, in not just in our relationships and in the dynamics of our friendships or that kind of thing, but our careers and where we live and how we design our life. And that's one of the core values at Fuel Collective is love life. And that's really about actively designing and living a life that you love, not the YOLO, you only live once kind of, but
Throw it
actively,
away kind of life. Yeah.
actively really loving the life that you're creating for yourself. So thank you so much for sharing that. Before we kind of wrap up, there's two things I kind of want to ask. As you know, you've joined us on a podcast about relationships and date forever, and the concept of dating yourself, but also dating your chosen person, your partner, forever. What would you say is a practice that you've got that helps you actively date yourself? You obviously work with a coach, but is there anything else?
Yeah, 100%. I take myself on dinner dates, solo, without phones and things like that. And I just, the 5 love languages people talk about all the time?
Yeah, the 5 love languages. Gary Chapman, big fans.
Yeah, cool. So I kind of look at that in a sense of filling your cup first, right? So there's literally, if we look at touch, do you touch yourself? And when I say do you touch yourself, there's 2 versions, right? So I just
the sexual and non-sexual version.
No, even if it's sexual. Quick example. Your partner comes to bed with you and is touching you and trying to get you off, but at the same time is on the phone. Or your partner's getting intimate with you in bed, but also puts on porn. You're a bit... What about when you hang out with yourself? Do you touch yourself just by yourself? Are you able to be comfortable with your own body? Are you able to feel good just by yourself? Do you feel sexy on your own? Or do you need someone else to do that for you? Right? And then quality time. When you're alone, are you comfortable spending time just with yourself? Or the second you're alone, is there a phone? Is there something else? Is there something else? Is there something else? And then words of affirmation. Do you tell yourself? I used to look at myself in the mirror and go, you're not this enough, you're not that enough, you're not this enough, you're not that enough, you're not this enough. And eventually I go, And then if someone told me I looked good, or they validated me or something, it was like, oh wow, that's my only source of that love language. And that is like, in a sense, is you're trying to become whole through the actions of others, and it's not going to work. So for me, I think Will Smith, Jada did that Red Table Talk, right? And they talked about their history with infidelity and all these things, and the realization they had was 2 unhappy people don't make a happy relationship. If you're in a happy relationship, it's one happy person plus one happy person equals a happy relationship. But even then, it's like there's three things going on there. There's your happiness, there's the other person's happiness, and then there's the relationship's happiness. But if both of you are unhappy and you're expecting the relationship to be happy, it's not going to work, right? So in terms of dating myself, do I literally give myself massages, whether it's a foot rub? Do I give myself a nice hot bath? Do I practice presence and date myself in the morning with the tea? My partner knows now, if I'm grumpy or something in the morning, because she's around, she knows, she can see. If I wake up in the morning and I've given myself some love and I've sat in the sun and had a tea and did my meditation without distractions and I've stretched a bit because I can feel where my body needs it and, I'm listening to my needs, I'm absolutely delightful to be around. Some other mornings, I might wake up and I'm a bit sore and it's like I had something I needed to do first in the morning, so I jumped on my phone and notification went to notification, and then all of a sudden 2 hours have passed and I haven't done anything for myself. I'm hungry, I'm dehydrated, my neck hurts, I'm grumpy, and she doesn't have to put up with that. Like, she's just like, hello, you didn't do your meditation, you didn't, so don't be coming,
Yeah, don't be bringing that energy.
Yeah, go and look after yourself.
That's what we kind of say, like the relationship with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship that you have.
100%. You teach people how to love you by how you love yourself. Like, if you're never listening to your needs, who else is going to listen to your needs?
Yeah.
Like, how is anybody even going to know you're hungry if you never feed yourself?
I really like this. I've got a girlfriend who's had a few rough years kind of dating and had some mixed relationships. And she has gone 100% all in on dating herself. And she's having these beautiful, like, candlelit dinners at home, beautiful bottle of wine and, cooking really nourishing food. And she's taking herself on these really romantic dates. She went and saw, I think it was an orchestra by candlelight, and just these incredible things. And like, I want to date her. Like, I'm like, look at all these amazing things that she's doing for herself. Like, I want a piece of that. And I've felt her energy shift from like trying to attract someone by serving others versus attracting others by serving herself. And it's just amazing to be around.
100%. That's such a beautiful story. I love that. And whoever your friend is, power to her. As soon as anybody tries to take her on a date and that isn't like, up to scratch, she's going to know. She's going to be like, excuse you, like, what do you mean you're taking me? What? Absolutely. Yeah, I can relate to that too. 100%. It comes to mind really quickly just on that note, is I moved into Bondi, and COVID happened, I was supposed to go to Bali, I was looking forward to that island living lifestyle, and I was like, shit, I don't want to be living in Walleye Creek in some apartment right now, especially if it's COVID. I'm going to go live in Bondi. Now, the thing with Bondi is there's some of the most beautiful people in the world, right? And there are beautiful people everywhere. And when you're not feeling great, and you're not feeling like confident within yourself, it can be a little bit jarring, right? People talk about it all the time. So you walk out and you're like, oh, shit. Oh, are people looking at me? Oh my God, they're so attractive. But then that went away as soon as I started giving myself attention. Because, I started going to the beach, and I went to the beach because it was for me, because it feels good. And then I would go to work out at the bars for me because it feels good. And I'm doing things for me, and people can feel that, right? I'm not looking to see if you approve of me being here. I'm not shy. I'm just here. I'm doing me. Wow, he's so comfortable. And that's all it is. your discomfort is usually a sign of where you need to love yourself. That's it. Or get to love yourself.
Yeah, I like that. And then on the other side of it, if there was a tool, tip, recommendation, piece of advice, story that you wanted to share for how to keep a romantic relationship fueled up.
Yeah. So the first time I heard this was at a Tony Robbins. The line goes, if you treat each other at the end of a relationship like you did at the beginning of a relationship, there wouldn't be an end of a relationship. I'm letting that sit for a second because thinking how true that is. And the examples he gives is like, you first move in together and your girlfriend says, can you take out the trash? You're like, whoa, of course I can take out the trash. Yeah, and you're skipping out and you're taking it out, and, you know, and a few months later she goes to, can you take out the trash? Fucking bitch, fucking always tell me what to do, and but if you just catch yourself and recognize that there's two things. I want to say I got this from the Greeks, but I don't know, so I'm just gonna speak to what it is. But people, I think, say that because I love you, I treat you correctly, whereas I've turned it more into, because you're important to me, I act with love. Because in the sense that you're not always gonna feel in love with that other person. You might get emotional, you might get triggered, you know, whatever. So if your requirement is that you feel in love, therefore I treat you nicely, as soon as you don't feel in love, what does that mean about your treatment and your behavior? Whereas if you're important to me, that's regardless of how I feel right now, no matter how upset I am, I'm going to remember you're important to me and act with love, from a place of love. Whether that means I'm hurt and I'm communicating I'm hurt, whether some boundary's been crossed, whatever that looks like, first step is that.
Yeah, I really love that. And we have this saying of like, be the prize. So when you come into a relationship, you are the prize. Like, you present yourself in the best way you possibly can. You come across as this amazing person. And then throughout your relationship, quite often that tarnish disappears and you drop your own game and your own ball, and you're no longer the prize. You're sitting on the couch doing nothing rather than
8 hours deep into scrolling.
Yeah.
Not a lot going on.
Rather than actually spending some quality time with your partner. And yeah, so it's just be the prize is always this thing that we come back to.
I really like that. And be the real prize though, right? Because I feel like, I don't know if you've ever experienced this. Oh, I'm sure you have. And any of the listeners have, both on the receiving end and the giving end. You've kind of put someone else on a pedestal and you've gone, oh my God, if that person would be with me, so on and so forth, whatever, fill in the blank, right? And then we go about setting out like to be a little bit of a chameleon and like fitting ourselves into this idea or this shape of who we think that other person wants us to be. And this is on some level is manipulation as well, right? It's like but let's not forget that manipulation is simply, people manipulate when they believe their needs are not going to be met any other way, right? Of course, there's a lot to unpack there. But even in my sort of previous relationship, there was an unconscious behavior where my partner was trying to be what she thought I wanted her to be. And over time, her personal identity was so lost because I don't think at the time she even really recognized who she was without the relationship, without her career, without everything. There was some truth-seeking to be found, right? And so there was a malleable, like she did not want to be in an open relationship, and we recognize that now. But at the time, at the beginning of the relationship, on day one, when I told her, you know, that's what I'm looking for, she thought about it and she went, oh, I could probably make that work. It's not a probably can I make that work. Is it a fuck yes or a, that's it, guys. Is it a fuck yes or a,
Yeah, we have this rule that there's no sevens. So what we mean by that is like if you're rating something like 1 to 10, you know, if it's a 7, it's like, it's not a yes, it's not a no. But if it's a 6 or less, it's a hell no. If it's an 8 or higher, it's a hell yes. Yeah.
I love that. Super cool. I use that too.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. If there was one rapid fire tip for couples who are in the first few years of their relationship for a skill or a strength that they should invest in mastering, what would it be?
Getting good at being uncomfortable. Maybe even changing it from being uncomfortable to being fun comfortable.
Embrace it. If anyone wants a book on that, I really enjoyed Ryan Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way.
I'm reading that right now.
Oh, yeah. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Lean into the discomfort. Lean into the thing that's feels like you want to go around it. Go through it.
Yeah. I mean, like, we're all just looking for growth. Either we grow or we die. We don't grow inside our comfort zone. So literally, as soon as you're uncomfortable, you're kind of growing. I mean, not painful. Uncomfortable. Fun comfortable.
I love that. Hey, Ty, thank you so much for joining us. We mentioned one of our values being love life and another being to date forever, but the third one is to be the change. And that's about taking accountability for yourself and what you have the ability to influence and change in your own life, but also to be the change that you want to see in the wider world. So to say thank you for joining us, we've given a year's worth of seeds to a family in Malawi so that they can grow some crops and they continue to feed and sustain their children day after day. So thank you so much for making that possible.
It's awesome. Thank you for allowing me to be a part. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Not a problem. So, Ty, if people want to connect with you or want to learn a little bit more about what you do, how should they do that?
Probably either on Instagram at Ty in Life is the easiest way to get to me. So that's TY in Life. Otherwise, Facebook, Tyrone Williams is nice and easy. There should be a cheeky photo of me, and I'm sure you guys can put something in the show notes.
Pop it in the show notes. Yeah.
And otherwise, if you're in Sydney, I run a wonderful sort of entrepreneur rejuvenation reset day on Sundays in Bondi. And there's trampolining, there's healthy, nutritious foods, there's yoga, there's bodyworker, massage, and it's great value, great people. It's in my place here, and it's a lot of fun. And for people who are couples and relationships who are looking for interesting, kind of more fun, more conscious relating conversations, and maybe a little bit more out there and open, we got a community for you too. We're doing all kinds of fun stuff. So just get in touch. Happy to have a conversation always.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.